What's up, bro?
Hey, so for surgery rotations, when we do a sub-I, do we have any documents or any advice that you'd give? Because I'd love to hear things for inside the OR and outside the OR,
Dude, absolutely.
and like
So
more specific for like sub-I. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's
this right here
sweet,
would recommend
awesome.
about 2.5 hours. We'll go through pretty much
That's
everything.
perfect. Thank
So
you.
that's for sure. And then there's also a bunch of links on this as well, like what to
Well,
do, how to stand out, studying for it, etc.
okay. And this would be good for sub-Is for any of the like surgical specialties, like you would suggest for vascular or ortho or anything.
100%. Yep, this is a
Cool,
really good
cool.
starting point.
Then the second one was just going through everything. A lot of people were talking about the differences between QBanks of Amboss and UWorld and all that. And I've gone through the resources you provide. But I guess the question that I have is like, I know NBME changes stuff. I know things change seasonally and that sort of stuff. How should we think about the questions like when we do them and we get those little takeaways at the bottom, or we get the Amboss summaries, like how should we try to translate that a little bit more into NBME logic? Because I've been using the reverse pyramid protocol. That's been helping a lot for time management, but I want to get a little bit more of like, I guess thinking as you did to be able to say this appears to be high yield or is a relevant concept, like, and I think the wording for that would be like, what's more NBME style thinking, if that makes sense.
So that's a really solid question, and the answer is going to sound very simplistic to you. And I love having like complex explanations for everything, best practices, etc. But this is
Yeah.
actually quite cool. You just got to
Okay.
take BMEs.
Sweet. Yep. And then kind of get more used to how they're wording stuff and that kind of thinking.
100%. So,
Cool.
and like you said, there's a big substantial difference. If you see a
It's
topic
terrifying.
tested on NBME, it might be in a
Yep.
very different way than any other question bank. UWorld, Amboss, Lecturio, USMLE,
Yep.
or whatever it is, that it's all very, very different. So at the end of the day, this is why I always harp on UWorld is to learn the material, not to test yourself. And so
Awesome.
if
Yep.
you know a concept front and back, like the back of your hand, it doesn't matter how they ask it to you. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to be able to
Hmm.
apply it. But with that being said, you're always going to see questions asked in a manner you've never seen before, and it can trip
Cool.
you
Yep.
up. Like if you see somebody with something that sounds very innocuous and they're just like, oh, patient has a skin tag and they're here for a wellness check. What's the next thing
Hmm.
you should look for? I mean, it could be like a million different things, even though it sounds
Yeah.
like a very generic complaint. It could be like something as benign as just a regular acrocordon, or it could be an
Hmm.
underlying GI malignancy. You know what I mean? Like if
Yep.
you've never
Yep. For
seen that
sure.
though, then just knowing that it's associated with it is not that helpful until you've basically missed a question like that. So
Cool.
think about it as I got to miss more MBME questions.
I love that. Then with that, using your role to learn, and this is kind of my last one on there. I try to think about like when we get like a generic relationship like that's like a risk factor thing I could extract. And another thing is like trying to extract like next step in management. Obviously for step two, those seem to be like really high yield things that like you really have to get that stuck in your head.
Right.
Some concerns that students have obviously is that there can be differences in management, and that's where obviously using your videos and everything's been super helpful. Um, but I guess that's like the only thing that I want to say it's like a worry, but trying to be realistic with it, where it's like, some stuff's easy, like you're not going to give a kid something that will give them radiation, but some things can get a little bit more complex where it goes to like, say, back pain, and like they're trying to be like real tricky about conservation of like, NSAIDs or something because they're really trying to cue you into a renal issue or like a GI issue. So like, I guess it's the biggest concern if you roll, is it sometimes feels like it's like in a perfect world that's has like a trick associated to it, and NBME is much more like what your family practice or IM doctor would do in the real world. So that's just kind of my last question is like, is there anything there that like, not to overthink, but to try to extract from you will to try to be a little bit more in touch with the real deal?
Yep. So first things first is when I get these questions where I know that there's a couple of generic ways that seemingly benign or generic complaint could be
Yeah.
treated, I always go with cross off anything that you know it's absolutely not, right? That's the first step,
Cool.
obviously. Number two is go with what you've seen the NBME test over everything. And so
Awesome.
with the secret archives, I've tried to cross-reference this because obviously there's a lot of discrepancies, like you said, between UWorld, Amboss, NBME. anytime that there was a discrepancy, I always included what the NBME actually focuses on.
Okay.
Um, so if I've seen it tested in that way, then I always do my best to make that the thing I teach rather than the 78 tangential things that UWorld could
Thanks.
probably teach you on that. And for all the DOs on here that have used TrueLearn or ComBank, you know that you'll have dramatically different tested algorithms. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. But I always say go with what the NBME tests over everything.
Awesome.
Um,
Thank you.
Number three, start with less invasive and then go to more invasive. Another easy rule of thumb, considering if you don't have anything for step number one or number two that can help you, go with the less invasive option. Um, Number four is take into account comorbidities slash functional status of patient. And basically what I mean by that is just like think about it as if it was your patient rather than a
Yeah.
practice stem. Like for example, if somebody comes in with a freckle on a question, you're not gonna do like a full body PET scan. Like you would never do that, even if that seems like the best answer for whatever reason to you. Like you would never
Yeah.
do that to your actual patient in real life. So think about it as if you were treating somebody in a clinic or an ER or in the OR or whatever it is. Like, and I'll also say here in parentheses, use your setting to help you.
Awesome.
So those are kind of my rules, like basic rules of thumb that come to mind. Something that also can be helpful for you that on this is right here, this test taking guide. This is something that's really, really helpful. I go through and have like a bunch of like just rules of thumb and stuff that are similar to,
Okay.
I think it's like over 70 pages of stuff. So that can help you for sure.
Sweet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good questions. All right. Who's up?
Can I follow that up with a question, if that's okay,
Hey, go
Dr.
ahead, man.
Price? Good, how are you?
I'm chilling. I'm chilling. Good to see you.
You too. Can we play with ChatGPT a little bit in analyzing NBME, like question patterns, et cetera, and so forth? Make that a little more efficient, I guess.
Yeah, it's something certainly. I've personally have had better luck using Grok than ChatGPT, but I know that some of the new updates with ChatGPT are pretty solid as well. I just haven't got around to messing with it again since some of the more initial versions of it.
Okay.
Um, but
Because
certainly,
yeah, I was using that to analyze questions from NBME 9, and like, I know we're supposed to go with whatever NBME gives us. I did notice like on NBME 9, I was like, some of the stuff seemed a little outdated compared to what we kind of learned. And talking to some other people who've taken it, it sounded like they also thought the same so far. I don't really know. Um, but yeah, I've just been using ChatGPT to kind of analyze it and then cross-check everything with Amboss because Amboss has this like add-on to ChatGPT you can use, and it'll go back through Amboss and like make sure things are up to date as per at least Amboss. Uh,
I think that that's totally reasonable. The one thing I will tell you,
mhm.
um, with using AI for studying, and I'll say this, and this is something that I've had a bunch of people ask me.
Yeah,
I think it's a great question because honestly, in this day and age, if you're not using AI in your day-to-day life, you're probably going to fall behind people that do use it, to be quite frank. With that being said, you can also waste an absolutely egregious amount of time with it. And
right.
so I'll be honest with you, with that being said, thousands and thousands and thousands of people have broke 260s and 270s on their boards without having ChatGPT. So does that mean
Okay.
it's something that needs to be used? The answer is absolutely not. When it
Okay.
comes to in real life, like if you need a quick review on something, like I
Yeah.
don't Google a lot of stuff anymore. I literally put it into Grok and I'm like, hey, break this down for me like I'm a toddler or something. You know what I mean? Like you can really
Yeah.
make a huge, huge uptick in your learning speed. But when
Right.
it comes to practice questions and NBMEs and the USMLE and COMLEX and all that kind of stuff, I do
Okay.
think you can go down rabbit holes. And something I noticed, and this is from my personal use of it, I
Right.
I did my vascular surgery board questions through ChatGPT and Grok both. Maybe like 3, 4 months ago. Uploaded practice tests into both, saw what the
Mhm.
answers were. Their explanations were incredible. And guess what? I scored a 50% on ChatGPT and a 55% on Grok, despite having explanations for everything, references
Yeah,
for every single question, citations
right.
for every single aspect of each answer choice, still did not even pass the test. So that just goes to show that despite there being something out there in the real world to support an answer that Grok
Yeah.
or GPT is going to tell you, does not mean that that is the right thing to support that answer. And so you can legitimately waste an absolutely insane amount of time sifting through
Mhm.
all that. So I personally, as much as I love using AI in my daily life, and like legit, I use it every day essentially. Like whether it's uploading job contracts and asking it to analyze it like a world-class lawyer, whether it's
Mhm.
give me the most streamlined way to do this with these parameters, you know what I mean? Like there's a million ways to do it. I just don't think that it's good enough yet to rely on
Yeah.
as a study aid. And I think in that instance, you'll end up regretting your time usage on it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I have noticed that sometimes I'll be very specific about what I'm asking it to do, and it still won't do exactly what I've asked it to do. So that makes sense. Yep.
I think also the biggest thing that I see with med students over the years, and this is not even just new for AI, this is something I've seen over the last 7, 8 years of teaching med students, is that the newest thing always looks like the best thing. So AI
Right.
is new. Your friend uses AI, says how awesome it is, then you fall for the trap of kind of like chasing after I forget what the word is for it, like the little idiom, but it's like the
Chasing
gold.
the trend.
Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
always looking for the new shiny thing, you know what I mean? Like shiny object syndrome. And
Right.
I is like easily the biggest shiny object syndrome that I've seen in 2025. And I don't want you to feel that you're missing out if you're not using it for your studying, because I
Okay.
don't think it's the best arena for it yet.
Okay. Got it.
And I see David's got his hand up. What's up, man? Did you have something
If
you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if you are doing the large language models and you're paying for it, the Dr. Hoot, it's like the Owl Hoot plugin has been much more accurate than the Amboss. Because if you use this the generic chat, it's like the same experience where it's like really random. It'll pull a paper from like whatever 1990 and one from 2025 and simultaneously like way too old school and way too fresh to be like board relevant. But from what I found, Dr. Hoot was the one that was like actually based on NBME stuff. So for like quick stuff to like actually reference. It's the only one that I found that was like directed towards boards. And that's kind of saved me some time comparatively.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. Good to know. That one I have not obviously checked into, so that's something that everybody have to look into on their own. But I think it is something that for sure in the future will be absolutely necessary with studying. It's just a matter of time. Like literally, probably by 2027 or 28, every lecture is going to be based off of AI, or at least going to have like study guides made from AI, etc. So, all right, who's up next? Good questions, guys.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, man, what's up?
Um, so I take the free 120 as first step one, COMLEX one. I take it Saturday, and then the following Thursday is my school's COMSAE, and then I take COMLEX June 2nd, so like a few days after that. After my free 120 Saturday, I've done zero COMLEX questions for reference, like zero OPP, nothing. Should I just rip OPP for like an entire week before that COMSAE?
Yeah, I would.
All right, and just do every OPP question in the True Learn Bank.
Yep.
All right.
I think 7 to 10 days is usually what most people need.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like the one good thing that my school does is just hammer OPP so hard. Like I feel like I could probably pass it now without it, but
Yeah, so and when's you so ComSay is on Thursday, Comlex is June 2nd, 2 days later. Should I study OPP? Yeah, so I mean 7 to 10 days is usually pretty good. I would transition around now to banging through the COMBank/TrueLearn questions, and also include the questions that are not OPP specific, but are osteopathic in nature. There's like a separate checkbox, which adds on a bunch of extra questions that are like, this patient has tissue texture changes at like T1 to T4, and they'll like kind of require you to know that to solve the question, even though it's not really an OPP question because they're not asking how to treat it. So include those other questions now in the meantime while you're also adding in the OPP.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'll start doing that tomorrow. And then the other thing I was starting doing today was like kind of, because I don't really have that much. I have like a couple NBMEs left, but I feel like I maybe want to save them. I started just like chunking through my first aid book because I don't really know what else to do. Should I be reading every word on every page of the first aid, or mostly just focusing on my annotations?
So my week before my USMLE, that's what I did, is I broke it down into like 5 sections. Essentially, it was like 120 pages each or so. And I literally read it cover to cover. I thought it was useful. Some students don't like to do that. If you're not a big reader, then you might not think that that's a good use of your time. If maybe, I don't know your reading speed or not. But for some people, that's overwhelming and not helpful. I personally reminded myself of a lot of stuff that I probably hadn't seen in a while, just by the nature of it's essentially a crash course of 90% of what's on your test. So
Yeah.
if you don't feel like it's going to kill you to do it, then it's definitely a very viable option. I personally did it, and my mentor also did it back whenever I was studying for my step one back in like 2017, I guess it was.
Yeah. Do you think that would be a better use than doing I think I have 800 UWorld questions that are like sitting in my flag pile. I should do that same protocol you had for the week prior to step, in addition to probably reading first aid.
It's going to be tough to go through 800 questions plus read first aid,
That's thinking.
but I give you these parameters just knowing where you're at personally.
Mhm.
If you're doing these flags and over the first 2 blocks, if you're scoring above 87%, I would say just go to reading first aid.
Thanks.
Absolutely.